this homeschooling thing, it's cute and all when they're little, but you're not going to do this in high school, right? And actually, my answer to them for years was an emphatic no. I am not doing high school because I'm not smart enough. I'm not organized enough. I'm certainly not patient enough. I had trouble in high school. Yeah. So forget about being a high school teacher. What about the rest of us who barely got through chemistry and algebra ourselves, right?
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. I am so excited to spend this week with you. And this is part of our Homeschooling Through the Years series. And let me actually tell you a story about that. So we have Carrie De Francisco back with us, and she's been with us before. And several months ago, she sent me a new book that she has, and it's Homeschool Through High School. The title of it is A Handbook for Christian Education. And I'm so excited about this book because, as you know, we just graduated our first daughter, and now I've got another upcoming high schooler. She's in going in eighth grade, but really she's actually kind of eighth grade, ninth grade, taking some high school courses and stuff this year. And so it's the perfect book for me because I'm going to tell you that even though we've done high school once, I still have questions, and there are still times where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing and I need help with this. So Carrie sent me this new book, and I thought, well, this would be great to do a whole episode about high school. And then I was like, well, if we're going to do one about high school, we should do one about middle school. Well, if we're going to do one about high school and middle school, we should do one about elementary. And if we're going to do one about high school, middle school, and elementary, well, then we should probably do preschool as well. And then I thought I want to bookend it with 2 episodes. And so like, this is how my brain works. And so then I thought, well, let's bookend it with kind of an intro, which you guys have already heard. We talked about just kind of what really matters and setting the tone for our homeschooling. And then we're going to bookend it on the other end with Rachel Carmen. And that episode is amazing as well, because we're calling that one the after years, which I don't even know if that's a real word, but I've made it a word if it's not an official word. The after years, after high school, your kids are going into adulthood. And what does that look like? And so Rachel comes on to encourage us with that. So all because of Carrie's new book, Homeschool High School, it turned into this whole series. So thank you, Carrie, for the inspiration for that.
You are so welcome.
Yeah. I'm so excited about this series. It's been great so far. I've so much enjoyed talking through all of the years. And as it would happen, I think you were my first interview scheduled. And then we had to cancel and reschedule twice, which almost never happens. And I ended up recording all the preschool, elementary, middle school episodes first. And so I thought, God's timing is so perfect because it kind of worked its way into you being the last one of homeschooling through the years. And so anyway, God's timing is good. And I'm excited to talk with you this week. But before Carrie introduces herself and I get into my conversation with her, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. If you guys are looking for great curriculum, whatever subject you're looking for, BJU Press Homeschool has something for you. You can check them out at bjupresshomeschool.com, and they teach everything and write everything from a strong biblical worldview, and they do not disappoint. They are such a fantastic curriculum. We use them for some of our subjects, and we're super eclectic in the way that we teach our kids. And so we have loved them. And there's never been anything that I've questioned about their curriculum. And so we really do trust them. Check them out at bjupresshomeschool.com. And if you're not sure what you need, call them up and talk to one of their consultants who will help walk you through it. bjupresshomeschool.com. Well, Carrie, welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. It has been quite some time, and I'm so excited to have you back with me. For those who maybe missed your first episode, it's been, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. I don't even remember. It's been a long time. Tell our audience who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself and your homeschool journey.
Well, thank you again, Yvette, for having me. I have been looking forward to this because I so enjoyed our first conversation about just how to simplify our homeschooling. And so I'm super excited we finally get to talk about the high school years because they were my favorite. But I guess I am in the after years. And so we homeschooled both of our kids, I like to say, from birth until high school graduation. And 3 years ago, when my youngest graduated from high school, I had to reluctantly remove my homeschooling mom hat and put on my retired homeschool mom hat. So I'm now a retired homeschooling mom. Absolutely love this time of watching my kids flourish. But yeah, so I have a podcast, Coffee with Carrie, homeschool podcast. I write a few books here and there. I speak here and there. And my favorite part is meeting with moms and kind of coaching them and encouraging them and helping them do whatever it needs in their homeschooling journey.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things is when I meet moms like yourself who have been through the homeschooling years, and you have such a passion to come alongside us younger moms who are still in the trenches and just say, it's like you're just cheering us on from the sidelines, saying, you can do this. I made it through. You can make it through too. But not just cheering us on, actually mentoring and discipling in many ways these moms who are desperate for those things. We are desperate for help. We are desperate for encouragement. I am constantly desperate for encouragement and looking to other moms in my life who can just come alongside me and just say, okay, what is the issue? What do you need help with? Let me help walk you through it, because every family is different. So every family has different struggles when it comes to homeschooling. And I know high school is one of those struggles that many, many moms have. And most moms, I would say, fear the high school years because
they do.
We don't know if we're going to make it through. And even if you're a high school teacher, right? Maybe you've taught at the high school level, you probably have only taught a single subject, maybe a couple of subjects. I mean, like there just are so many aspects to the high school years, and it can be very, very frightening. And so a lot of moms, I've talked to many of them, say, I'm going to homeschool up until 8th grade. And then in high school, I'm going to let my kids go off to high school so that they can be taught by the experts, right? And oftentimes they think, well, my child is set, they have a solid foundation for their faith. They know what they believe. They know why they believe it. And so I'm good to send them off in those high school years. And those can be some of the most difficult years for our kids to be being educated by a traditional school system. So talk with me through maybe just kind of back yourself up to those years when your kids were little and they were going up into those high school years. Did you feel the same way? Were you like, oh, I don't know if I can do this? And then maybe walk us through that time of your life.
Oh, you bet, because I was that mama. So when we started homeschooling, like I said, I loved the wonder years. I loved when they were younger. And in the beginning, we didn't have an awful lot of support from both sides of our family, right? And so when we would meet for family dinners and holidays and stuff like that, different family members and neighbors, nosy neighbors, of course, would ask, well, this homeschooling thing, it's cute and all when they're little, but you're not going to do this in high school, right? And actually, my answer to them for years was an emphatic no. I am not doing high school because I'm not smart enough. I'm not organized enough. I'm certainly not patient enough. I had trouble in high school. Yeah. So forget about being a high school teacher. What about the rest of us who barely got through chemistry and algebra ourselves, right?
Right.
So I was like, no, I'm not going to do high school. They're going to go off to high school. But my kids and God had other plans. And so it was actually my kids who, when they got close to the 9th grade year, said, no, I want to keep homeschooling. This is a great gig. Why would I give this up? I mean, I have all this free time. I could do all the things that I absolutely love. My daughter loved the idea that she could kind of chart her own course because she knew exactly what she wanted to do and where she wanted to be in post-graduation. And so they were the ones that said, no, Mom, let's keep doing this. And so that's why we continued. And when I say, and this is one of my favorite things to tell moms, especially the ones who are so afraid, is that God comes alongside you. He is truly their teacher, right? Isaiah 54:13. It says that the Lord will be your children's teacher and great shall be their peace. That was my mantra for the whole high school time. And he filled in the gaps. He filled in the holes. And it truly was, I truly feel like God saved the best of our homeschooling journey for last.
Wow.
I really do feel like the high school years were just so, so precious for so many reasons. But it was just, I wouldn't trade it in for anything. And I'm just so glad that I said yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to know what the best for last was, but first we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Have you tried CTC Math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC Math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC Math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Are you looking for a homeschool curriculum that goes beyond textbooks and truly engages your children in the joy of learning? Apologia's award-winning curriculum is written by homeschool parents to specifically meet your needs and captivate your students with hands-on activities and experiments that make learning unforgettable. With an easy-to-follow, open-and-go format, Apologia takes the stress out of planning and provides a simple roadmap that can easily be tailored to your family's needs. Explore live classes or self-paced courses designed to accommodate every student's unique learning style. Elevate your child's education, spark their curiosity, and nurture a lifelong love for learning with Apologia. Discover Apologia today at apologia.com. We are back with Carrie. Okay, so you said they were the sweetest years. God saved the best for last. Talk about that. Why were the high school years for you so special?
I think the main reason is because of the relationships. So you know this, if you've been homeschooling for a while, you know that the academics come. It's icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It's the relationships that make home education what it is. And so when they're in the high school years, and you get to be right alongside them when they are becoming the people that God has created them to be. And they're discovering their purpose in life. They're discovering who God has created them to be. They're discovering what they want to do and what God has called them to do. And you are right there alongside with them as they do that. And I just loved all the conversations we had. I hate that narrative that's out there that the teenage years, when I would be in the grocery store and these old cute little grandmas would see me with the little kids and they'd be like, oh my gosh, they're so cute, but just wait until they're teenagers. And I used to think back then, I don't want that to be our story.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be our narrative, that why just because they're teens, am I not going to have a great relationship with my kids? And so when they were in high school, we were able to really build that relationship that, yes, I was still their mom, but I was also one of their best friends. And so whatever they were struggling with, even their faith questions, challenges that they were having, their wins, we were the first ones that they shared those things with, that they wanted to share those things with. And I'm not saying that if your kid, goes to high school in a traditional brick and mortar, that you're not going to have a great relationship. I know many of moms who have a great relationship with their teens. However, I do think the chances are just skyrocket when you're homeschooling, that you will have such a sweet relationship with your teens. And then when they become young adults.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has been mine too, but that doesn't just happen by chance. I think that's something we have to work really hard at, is to have that relationship with our kids. And I appreciate you saying that your friends, your kids are your best friends, as well as you being their mom. And I mentioned this, I don't know if it was the elementary or middle school episode. I can't remember now. They all kind of jumbled together in my head. But oftentimes you hear moms say, I'm not their friend, I'm their mom. And I'm like, really? I mean, I'm my kid's mom, but I'm also their friend. And my girls are my best friends too. I love spending time with my girls most of the time. And we really enjoy one another, but it hasn't happened by accident. It has been because I've put a lot of work and prayer into my relationship with them. My husband has put a lot of work and prayer into his relationship with them. And we work together as a family. And so, yeah, I agree. I mean, the relationship is by far the most exciting part of homeschooling through these teen years. And it doesn't mean that it's always easy, but we've so often said, relationship over reading, character over curriculum. Those are the things that we really keep focused on in homeschooling, because those relationships are what extend far beyond into their adult years. And so I want to keep that relationship with them. And I expect that I will always have a good relationship with them, because I always have had a good relationship with them. And so, I love the relationship part of it. So let me ask you this. Maybe if there's a mom who's struggling, she's got teenagers and she's struggling in her relationship with her kids, how would you encourage that mom with those teen years? Because those teen years are hard. I mean, our kids the middle school years episode is so much fun, because we're talking about how they're just dealing with all the hormones and so many, like they don't even know what is happening in their bodies and to their bodies. And everything is just drama and chaos and confusion for them in a lot of ways. And I've seen as they move kind of into these high school years and get closer to the adult years, those emotions
Mm-hmm.
kind of even out a little bit. But I think oftentimes in those middle school years, those preteen and early teen years, there
Mm-hmm.
can be so much conflict in our relationship with our kids that when they get into the older teen years and into adulthood, sometimes we can damage that relationship with them because we've not known how to handle it as their parents. So really quickly talk to the mom who's maybe she hasn't really understood what was going
Mm-hmm.
on in those middle school years, and she's maybe done some damage, unintentionally to her relationship with her kids. How can she get that back?
Well, a couple of things, and I'm no expert, okay? But I do think that if I do feel that sometimes the Lord calls a teen home or a mom to homeschool, not because of the academics or because of what's being taught in their school system. It's to restore relationships,
Yeah.
and so I really do think that there are some moms and their kids that God's calling them home so that they can have this nice protective time together where they can work on and restore that relationship. So I do feel like one way to do it is for if they're new to homeschooling or if there's a lot of tension happening, that they do take some time. We called it Sabbath schooling or deschooling,
Yeah.
where they do just take some time away from the academics because that will relieve a lot of stress and a lot of conflict and a lot of tension because as homeschooling moms, we have to wear that hat. So if you remove that hat for a while and you just are intentional about spending time
Mm-hmm.
with your teen, right? And going on coffee dates, or like for my daughter, we love watching Spring Baking Championship, just doing things together that's not academic and
Yeah.
just having some time like that. Also, I do feel that when we are intentional about being interested in or actually loving the things they love
Mm-hmm.
and loving the people they love, so their friends, really getting to know their friends and welcoming their friends into your home and really praying for them and talking with them.
Yeah.
And then, like, if they're really into something, like my son really loves music. And so some of the best conversations we had were in the car in LA traffic, right? What else are we going to do except talk? And we would talk about all these different new songs that dropped and why he loved them. And it was nothing serious.
Yeah.
We did have serious, but we didn't have these serious conversations, but it meant a lot to him that even though I didn't know who half of these people were, I took an interest in the things that he loved.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's important too, that if our teens see that what they love is important to us enough for us to put time and effort
Mm.
into it, that goes a long way too. And
Yeah.
then you wind up becoming, I'm known as Mama D
Aw.
because all of my kids' friends would come over and I was looked at as their second mom,
Yeah.
because I just loved being around my kids' friends and I loved
Yeah.
praying for them and supporting them. And so I think just a little bit of those things go a really, really long way in
Yes.
restoring relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Being hospitable to our kids' friends is so important.
Hmm.
And it builds the relationship with our own kids, but then we know who they're
Hmm.
spending time with. We get to know the character of
Hmm.
their friends. And there have been situations where my girls have been friends with people, with other girls that they're not horrible, but I'm just like, maybe just take a step back, a little bit of a step back from that friend because I could see that there's some things that might be a little
Hmm.
bit toxic but we wouldn't know that unless we're spending time with their friends. And
Hmm.
because we have that relationship with our kids, most of the time they're willing to listen and say, oh, okay, yeah, I could
Hmm.
see how that, you know, could be possible.
Hmm.
So yeah, that relationship is so great. So obviously relationships are one of the greatest advantages of homeschooling high school. What are some of the other advantages of homeschooling through the high school years?
Well, I think the most obvious one is that everything your teen is learning can be Christ centered and based on God's truth, right? So literally, classes they take, activities they do, curriculum they use, all of it can be centered around God's word.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in today's society and what they're going to be hit head on when they do leave the safety of our nest, they need to be grounded. in true God-honoring, Christ-centered, spirit-filled truth. And so for me, that's the biggest advantage of homeschooling the high school years, because they are being bombarded with so much that you have their ear all the time. And so therefore you can speak truth into them, just like I said, in the car or when something was brought up in the news. And so I think that's the biggest one right there. And that we can also use God's standards for our teaching and not the world standards. So I think that's, or the state standards, right? So I think that's a huge advantage. But I also think what we had talked about earlier, they have so much freedom and flexibility that they have the time to discover their passions and their gifts and how they can use them to build God's kingdom when they're out in the world. But the best part is, because they're homeschooling, they can start doing it in high school. They don't have to wait until they're the magic age of 18 or they're off to college to start making their mark in the world for God. They can start doing it right there during the high school year. So there are just so many advantages, but those are some of my favorites.
Yeah. As you were looking at curriculum for your high schoolers, and we're all about this at Schoolhouse Rocked, and in our family is always teaching them from a biblical worldview. Did you use the same curriculum for both of your kids, or did you use different ones because they have different learning styles? How did you go about finding curriculum for each of them?
Such a loaded question. And you and I have 2 kids, but those mamas out there that have 3 and 4 and 5 kids, every kid is different. And so their learning styles are different. Their needs are different. Their goals post-graduation are going to be different. So we were a very eclectic homeschooling family. And so we used curriculum when one of the kids needed it. So like, for instance, math, we usually used, curriculum for that. Sometimes we used a box curriculum for science, but for the most part, we didn't use straight up curriculum for all the years from the same, publisher. I kind of went with what my kids, I actually sat down with my kids at the beginning of every year and said, what do you want to learn this year? How do you want to go about it? I would actually pick out like 2 or 3 different curriculums or courses or websites, and that we could afford and that fit our criteria. Like, why are we homeschooling? Does this meet, our why? And does this meet their goal and our budget? And I would give it to the kids and I would say, all right, pick the ones you want to use. And I let them decide, we're going to use this math curriculum, but I want to take this science class with my friends. And I want to do, this internship over here. And so I really got them involved in it. And so because of that, our experience as homeschooling the high school years was very eclectic. But I must say, by the time my son came along, we were pretty much full on unschoolers for his high school years. So there was just so much that he was interested in. It just didn't make sense to use straight up curriculum for everything. If that makes sense.
It does. And I actually want to park there. We're out of time. So we're going to leave a little bit of a cliffhanger, because I want to talk about you being kind of unschoolers, especially in those high school years, because I know that your children have both gone on to graduate college, and, God has really used the way that you homeschooled them to advance their academic careers. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday. We're out of time right now. Carrie, tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and your new book called Homeschool High School, a handbook for Christian education. Here's a copy of the book if you're watching on video. Where can people find all things Carrie De Francisco?
All things. Just go to my website, coffeewithcarrie.org, and that will bring you to my Instagram, my podcast, how to get my books, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, we'll put that link in the show notes to make it easy for you guys. Carrie, thank you for being with me today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned to the very end to hear a clip of what's coming up next on the podcast. And you can check out all things Schoolhouse Rocked on our website, schoolhouserocked.com. You can stream the movie for free. You can leave a donation for the ministry. You can read our blogs. We've got lots of fun stuff on there. So check us out, schoolhouserocked.com. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you back here on Wednesday. Bye.
Laughing in the face of imposter syndrome and coming to you from the epicenter of manly overconfidence, I'm your host, Yvette Hampton, and you are listening to The Thinking Dad.
even if we're able to push the evildoers and the totalitarians back for another generation, maybe if we work really hard, maybe even 2 generations, if they've got the young people, it's over.
I often think about Daniel's parents, who you don't hear anything about. But they must have laid down the foundation for Daniel to be able to go into Babylon and not fall.
We're in that very beginning part of the cycle for tough times. We've been fat and happy. We've been enjoying we're lazy because we enjoy so much freedom. We got all these blessings, and why would you go do the hard work? And so for a long time now, decades, we haven't had to do the hard work. We've been living on the fumes of previous generations paying the price. And we got to raise the bar and say, I'm willing to give more of my life, that's my time, more of my money, of course, that's our fortune, and more of my sacred honor, which is my reputation. I'm willing to put it all on the line. Every single one of us has to be willing to do that.
Join us for the first season of The Thinking Dad at thinkinggdad.net.
The kids have so much extra time on their hands, and it's a gift. But moms often think they're not doing enough, or their kids aren't doing enough because they're done with their schoolwork or their formal lessons in less than 3 hours sometimes. And so they're thinking, well, I got to add stuff in. They're not doing enough. But they're in that mindset of doing school at home instead of it being home education, that everything is a lesson